Now let's head to our top stories. Rwanda and Zimbabwe have signed three key agreements as the two countries continue to cement their relations. Pacts signed include the Extradition Treaty, Memorandum of Understanding on Immigration, Cooperation, and another Memorandum on Cooperation when investigating civil aircrafts, accidents, and serious incidents.
Now, during the signing of the agreements, Rwanda was represented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Vincent Biruta, who is in Zimbabwe. Now, joining us to speak more on this is Denford Mutasa. He's an economic analyst from Zimbabwe. To talk mostly about why this might be beneficial to both countries, Zimbabwe and Rwanda. You're looking at what they both have to offer each other. And of course the exports, where they both make their highest level of GDP from. I think it's an interesting, merger that both of them are doing, and some of the things that have also been mentioned, look very important for both countries. Zimbabwe definitely, needs that help.
Absolutely. I mean, intra-Africa trade is very important. We must encourage conversations, and this is something that has happened over the years. They've gotten into several agreements over the years, and it's benefited both countries. And I'm excited to see, how this benefits not just one but both countries. We certainly will be having this conversation. I think we have Mr. Mutasa joining us now. Can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All
right, quickly, just walk us through how these MOUs will benefit Zimbabwe and possibly also add to our economy.
I think it's very critical to realize that at the current juncture, African countries have decided to increase bilateral trade and also ensure that they also increase intra-Africa trade soon after the signing of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which has led African countries to realize that within the African Union, SADC, ECOWAS, etc., there is more that can be traded amongst the African countries. And if you look at Zimbabwe and Rwanda, around 2018, literally there wasn't, until up to 2018, there wasn't nothing much in terms of trade between the two countries. And so far, what we have seen, the signing of the bilateral trade agreements, you've already seen a lot of movement between the two countries. For example, Zimbabwe is set to also export, expertise labor into Rwanda, where teachers are going to be employed. Zimbabwean teachers are going to be employed in Rwanda. Whereas if you look at the modeling of the Zimbabwe, investment development in Zimbabwe ZIDA, it is modeled around the Rwanda Development Board, which is actually something that is very key between the two countries.
Let's talk about the budget. We know that Zimbabwe government has supplemented the budget by $929 billion, I beg your pardon. Let's talk about what this means for the growth of the economy.
I think if you look at the budget, 53% of that is certainly going to be committed towards, civil servants' pay. But I think generally it was just a supplementary budget that has been driven largely by the hyperinflationary environment, where the previous budget allocations were wiped off by the inflationary pressures currently obtaining in the country. And of course, what we have seen, the tax-free thresholds have been expanded, but of course not to the liking of the majority, who would have expected that, given the current inflationary environment, it could have been increased by a wider margin in order to promote aggregate demand. But the commitment to continue to support the ongoing infrastructure development is very key, because Zimbabwe has been lagging behind in terms of infrastructure development. Unfortunately, it has had to be funded from the domestic resources, unlike other big projects in other countries that are actually funded by foreign direct investment. So generally, the idea is to try and maintain stability in the economy, and also reviewing downwards economic growth from 5.5 to slightly above 4%. I think is owing to the realization of the geopolitical environment obtaining across the globe, as well as the domestic, challenges that are also happening in terms of, inflation, exchange rate challenges, as well as, the pricing challenges that have, seen a lot of people feeling that they are excluded in terms of access of key basic commodities and the other essentials. So I think there was an attempt by the minister to try and ensure that he maintains stability, but unfortunately, it is an environment that is currently quite a bit difficult, and it was a serious balancing act that the minister attempted to do.
All right, I want you to, if you can, help our viewers understand why Rwanda. Because they aren't necessarily neighboring countries. There is Zambia, there is Malawi, there's Mozambique, which are all right next to Zimbabwe. But they've chosen to go further down, to Rwanda. So is there any particular reason why Rwanda, has been chosen to sign these agreements? And are there other agreements that may also be coming, for Zimbabwe in the near future?
I think the relations between Zimbabwe and Rwanda, I think, improved slightly after the coming in of the new dispensation that is going on an overdrive to re-engage with all across the globe. And obviously, just like if you look at by 2018, I think only about 4,000 worth of goods had been imported from Rwanda, and that's really some miscellaneous commodities, and there wasn't much in terms of activity between the two countries. And I think one of the key areas that I see there is the improvement in terms of the political, socio-economic improvement of those relations directly attempted by the two heads of state. And I think that has also then led to a change of narrative between the two countries in order for Zimbabwe to begin to strengthen those relations between Rwanda and Zimbabwe. But otherwise, if you look at, it is not only Rwanda that Zimbabwe has, been trying to improve relations with, even if you look at here in Africa and beyond, even with the United States of America, Britain, regardless of the response that may come from the country that Zimbabwe is reaching out to. But Zimbabwe has continued on the re-engagement exercise, and His Excellency President Mnangagwa has actually been on record to say we are actually, enemies to none and friends to all.
Let's quickly look at numbers here. We're seeing that in the last 2 years, Zimbabwe exported goods worth $15.9 million to Rwanda, whilst exports from Rwanda were estimated at $113,607. And these numbers aren't as significant as they should be. We do know that the impact of COVID-19 hit both countries, or lots of countries around the continent greatly when talking about intra-continent trade. Now, we're seeing also that when we look at Zim trade, the top 10 partners, Rwanda is not listed in the top 10 partners. What's the possibility of Rwanda making that list? How soon, and what needs to be done for this to become a reality?
I think there is a lot that needs to be done. If you look at the current drive to send, excess experts that are coming from Zimbabwe, like teachers, etc., that is actually one of the result of the re-engagement. But there is more in terms of what can be imported from Rwanda. Looking at Zimbabwe, it is quite industrialized ahead of Rwanda, because at some point, you remember, Rwanda was largely an import-dependent country. So if you look at the techno, survey of Rwanda, the development that has taken place in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the technology, I think that is very key, and is set to export a lot of that into Zimbabwe. But of course, it making the top 10, it may actually be very difficult looking at how South Africa has dominated in terms of trade between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and also the proximity in terms of Zambia and connectedness between Zimbabwe and Mozambique in terms of distance. So I think those are some of the factors that may also affect the time that it will take for Rwanda to become one of the top 10 countries that are actually trading with Zimbabwe.
All right, we absolutely wish the people of Zimbabwe well, and of course, President Emerson Mnangagwa. We hope that these moves, of course, increase the relationships between both countries and increase business and trade and growth in both economies. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we wish you a great week ahead.
Thank you for having me.